necessarily works today isn't going to work tomorrow. But if you're not willing to keep being curious and being open to change, then you're going to get left behind.
Well, let's start. Thank you, Lomit, for joining us today, and welcome everyone to a new episode of Smartketers, a conversation with tech experts using artificial and human intelligence to make smarter decisions. 10 questions, 1 minute answer per question. So thanks, Lomit, for joining us today. And going straight to the point, first question, who's Lomit?
Well, hi, Mario. Thanks for having me on the show. And for anyone, who's Lomit, I would say, first of all, I'm a nice guy, but, I am actually the head of growth at IMVU, where my team leads all of our user acquisition, retention, and monetization. And for anyone who doesn't know, IMVU is one of the world's top grossing social networking apps. And beyond heading up growth there, I've worked at a number of different startups for the past 20 years. And, my role has always been all around, helping startups to figure out, how to grow, how to drive revenue, acquire new users, and ultimately get acquired or go IPO. And beyond that, I've written a book that became pretty famous called The Lean AI, which is part of the Lean Startup series, which talks about how startups can use artificial intelligence to help drive growth better, faster, and smarter.
That's great. And it's direct to our second question, that is, how would you define AI?
So for me, AI, the simplest way to think of AI is how can machines think and act like humans, based on taking information and making decisions. And I would say one subset of that a lot of us are very familiar with, at least in the advertising industry, is a concept of machine learning, where we have a lot of data, right? And so the idea is companies like Amazon, they take a lot of this data and they really use that to come up with recommendations around products and cross-sell and upsell opportunities. So, it's at the end of the day, it's all done using a machine that comes up with all these probabilities of what's the best recommendations and personal experiences for users.
That's great. And can you mention like any similar transformation over history?
Yeah. So, I would say, the world has gone through many different transformations, and artificial intelligence, in terms of something else that's really impacting the world the way artificial intelligence would be, would be like the internet. And I know other people on the show have said the same thing, but that's the honest truth. Because what the internet ended up doing was really sort of open up the whole mechanism in terms of how people can communicate. So you could get a whole global view on what's going on in the world, which you never really had up to that point. And at the same time, it's transformed so many different industries, where the whole world, the word of digital transformation has come about, because now so much of people's lives are based on doing things digitally, which wasn't the case until the internet came about.
That's great. And going like deeper into marketing, do you use AI in your day-to-day in marketing?
Yes, we've been using AI for a while, and as I mentioned, that was one of the reasons that I wrote the book, because I was really inspired. Because we started using AI very heavily about 3-4 years ago, when a lot of companies weren't doing it. But some of the things that we really use AI for, it's in different parts of the user journey. One area is around user acquisition. So, in terms of how we spend money across different channels, we really use AI to help us to really get more efficient about, how to invest our budget. So whether we should be spending more on Facebook or Google, and all of this is done based on looking at real-time data signals across the different exchanges where we're spending money, to really figure out where we should be spending at any given time, as well as, increasing our velocity of learning, so we can run tens and thousands of different experiments across creatives and audiences to really figure out who's the right audience and what's the right creative that we should be using. And then we use AI when it comes to when people get into our product to really come up with the right personalized experience based on where they're coming from and what actions and behaviors that they're doing to really help us predict out, what's the best way for us to monetize the user, whether it's through in-app purchase or advertising. And AI is able to sort of predict out based on the behaviors and actions somebody does in our app to help us identify what's the best personal experience to monetize them. And then, we use AI around things of creating models around churn predictions. So if we see people that are less engaged in the product, then we try to figure out how can we get them more engaged into the product, as well as, personalizing the types of offers and deals that we provide users based on if somebody's more likely to convert at a less price point deal, then there's no point giving them a richer deal. So those are some of the examples that we use AI for.
That's great. That's great. And if you could use it more, where do you see opportunities?
I would say that there's always opportunities to use AI more because now, if we think about it, so much of our life is based on digital. So there's so much more data around everything that we do and all our customers are doing. And it's not humanly possible to really have people continue to look at that data to surface ideas and insights on what to do with it. So I feel, with AI, it's really just the best way to really take, a huge subset of data to really help you to predict out what are the right actions and insights that you want to be able to take based on that. So yeah, right now, not only do we use it, for example, in all of our marketing activities, we also use it in all other areas of our business too, from examples being like customer support and service, like, what's the best way to proactively give users the answers to questions that they might have so they don't need to call in because that saves us money. Other companies use it for supply chain optimization, especially if you do e-commerce businesses. You don't want to keep a lot of inventory, but you want to try to optimize, and predict out what are the right types of products you want to keep and try to optimize so that you don't have to put a lot of cash into products initially. And then in healthcare, I think all of us have been fortunate, although as bad as this pandemic was, but with AI, we're able to find a cure with the different types of vaccinations because they were able to go through an accelerated period to come up and do all that testing to be able to figure out, what's the right formula to use. Normally, any new vaccination takes like 3 to 5 years. And the fact that we're able to get, a cured vaccination that no vaccination is perfect, but at least, increases your chances of having better protection within a year. None of that would have been possible without AI.
That's great, and we all know you're a great AI supporter. Well, you wrote down a book, and you're always pushing the industry forward. Which are the main blockers you see, like not only inside your company, but in general when adapting AI into your decision-making process?
I would say, yeah, the biggest blockers is always around education. People always have some kind of fear around like, how is this going to impact them personally and how it's going to impact their role and the company. So, what I have found is, is to always lead with people, which means that, end of the day, always try to, get people excited about, what AI can do for them and how it can ultimately augment their role, where it's not about replacing their role, but it's more about helping them to become more efficient in what they're doing. And, with businesses, I think companies now know that you're not really competing, on a local scale, you're competing globally. So all companies are looking for competitive advantages. So, anything that a company can do to get better, faster, and smarter around, either, increasing efficiencies to reduce costs or to drive more growth and revenue, that's where, AI can really help. And, I think the great thing that has happened is, with the pandemic, most companies have had to accelerate their adoption of digital and AI to a certain extent. So, I think people were probably forced to move into that a lot faster. But what's happened as a result is, people have come to realize that their life is much better now. A big part of it is due to AI and all the benefits you get from adopting to digital and change.
Makes sense. Well, the following question is for you, but we could do it for like in general. The question is if you're afraid of being replaced by AI, but we could do it like not only you, but teams in general. Which are your thoughts regarding that? Do you think people are afraid of being replaced or not at all?
I think that a big part of the fear of being replaced really comes from reading stories in the media, right? Because those are the sort of stories that sell. Those are the headlines that sell a lot of a lot of publications. But I think people need to take a step back, because the truth is, every decade, companies and societies are always looking for ways to improve their lives, right? For example, I'll take a navigation service in a car. Most people like to use it now to figure out how to get to wherever they're getting to. Before, when you never had that, you had to kind of look through like a book, an atlas or whatever. But how many people are going to go back to looking at the book if they can use a navigation, right? So, I think a big part of change is really for people to just put it into perspective. It's really about helping to improve their lives and the lives of the people around them, right? Because businesses can only thrive if they provide value to people. So that's the bottom line, and it has to really start by adding value to them, right? And if people can see the value, then other people will see the value in it too.
Great. And which are the things you do not support from AI being applied, mainly in marketing? Which are those things you say, I prefer not to have AI on that decision, on that action? Is there any of those? Or
so what I would say is, for me, I've been more on like you can get different like viewpoints, but my view has always been to try and lead with AI and automation as much as possible, because it really enables. When you work in startups, you want to always continue to figure out how you can get more done with less, and that's why leading with AI and automation has really helped me and other companies that I advise to always continue to be able to be more efficient. But what I would say is, there's different companies go through different evolutions, right? So if it's a bigger company, it takes a lot longer to adopt to this versus a smaller startup company. And so what I would advise is, ultimately, I think it's to a company's benefit to really adopt AI as much as possible, but put checks and balances in place to make sure that AI is being used ethically, reasonable, and that you're not introducing things into the system which is maybe limiting your preview or biases to the types of audiences, for example, that you might be targeting, or excluding people from who might ultimately value or benefit from your product, not getting to know about it. So for us, what we've tried to do is create like a little committee where we always continue to look at our algorithms and try to evaluate and just make sure that we're not excluding people that necessarily could benefit from what we have to offer.
Last question, Lomit, buying or building in-house?
I would say buy as much as possible, because technology, especially like AI, is rapidly changing so much, to try and build it, what you will end up building could get dated pretty quickly. And the benefit of buying is that you're working with a partner who's more vested into staying on top of improving that and staying on top of best practices, because that's the core dependency of what their business is. Plus, the skill sets continue to change, and the cost of continuing to build and rebuild and improve something, there's just a lot of like upfront investments that go into that. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of companies sort of, hold back from adopting AI, is because they're always trying to figure out, do we buy or build? And generally, there seems to be a bias towards building, but that's where people get stuck, because once they start building, then they realize they don't have the core competency to really finish the project. And then it ends up getting killed, and it leaves a bad taste in the mouth of the CEO or board, where then they shy away from trying to get back into the AI game. So I would say, work with companies that are really vested into this. And, I'm sure WinClap is one of those partners that can provide a lot of value. There's no point trying to build this when you've got a company that has the core competency to build it. So you can actually benefit from not only, working with a company that does that, but because they do that for a magnitude of other clients, you can learn from the best practices of what's already been applied elsewhere.
That's great, and thank you for your answer. Any final thoughts you're willing to share with the community in general, from AI, talent, marketing, whatever, something that comes to your mind that you're willing to share with the community?
So what I would share is, for me, the thing that's really sort of helped me sort of stay on top of change, and, just in terms of just always trying to sort of, think of like what's next, is just being curious and always asking questions around why something is happening and how can it be better. And it doesn't necessarily need to apply to AI, but I think just having the mindset of just questioning everything and not being completely attached to how things are, because, what necessarily works today isn't going to work tomorrow. But if you're not willing to keep being curious and being open to change, then you're going to get left behind, unfortunately.
Great, Lomit. Thank you very much for joining us today. And it was a pleasure having you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Mario.